Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the modern job hunt. For so many people, it's just this landscape of friction and frustration, and it all leads you to wonder, is the entire system just fundamentally broken?
Does anyone want to work anymore? You've probably heard that question. Maybe you've even thought it yourself. It's a line from an essay by Lance Morrow, and it just perfectly nails this feeling a lot of us have, that the connection between people and their jobs is under some serious strain right now.
To really get what's going on, we've got to zoom out a bit, because this isn't just about one bad interview or a crummy boss. There's a much bigger shift happening across the country, where it seems like every business is short-staffed.
11.2 million. That's how many open jobs there are in the U.S. economy right now. That's a huge number. And yet, you walk down any street and you see help wanted signs in almost every window. The jobs are definitely there. So the real question is, where are the workers?
And get this, it's not just about filling those empty spots. A recent McKinsey study found that a whopping 40% of people who already have a job are thinking about quitting. So this tells us it's not just a hiring problem, it's a retention crisis. It's a please don't leave crisis.
And you know where all this tension really just boils over? It's at that critical moment when new graduates try to step into the workforce for the very first time. What we're seeing is this massive disconnect between what employers expect and what the job seekers themselves are actually going through.
It's like they're speaking two completely different languages. On one side, you've got employers who are just baffled by this new generation of workers, and on the other side, you have recent graduates who feel like they're playing a game where the rules are impossible. So let's break down what each side is saying.
So let's start with the employers. A survey from intelligence.com gives us a pretty clear picture. When hiring Gen Z folks, more than half of businesses brought up key issues, like a perceived lack of motivation and poor communication skills, leading them to feel that recent grads just aren't prepared for a professional environment.
And on the flip side, you get this. I just want to scream. This is from an open letter by a student named Brittany Vu, and wow, does it capture the raw frustration of seeing so-called entry-level jobs that demand years and years of prior experience. It's that classic catch-22, right? How are you supposed to get experience if you need experience just to get your first job?
So where is this disconnect even coming from? What's driving this huge wedge between the classroom and the cubicle? Well, some critics are pointing their fingers directly at the modern university system.
75%. According to that same intelligence.com survey, a shocking 75% of companies said that the recent college grads they hired were, well, unsatisfactory. I mean, a number that high forces you to ask, what are colleges actually teaching, if it isn't the skills needed for the workplace?
So there's this term you should know, deanlets. It was coined by a political scientist named Benjamin Ginsberg, and it describes this massive explosion of administrative staff at universities. He argues that their main job isn't so much about academics, but more about keeping students happy, comfortable, and enrolled.
The argument goes something like this. By prioritizing emotional and intellectual comfort, creating safe spaces and policing microaggressions, universities are creating an environment that does the exact opposite of preparing students for the real world. The idea is that instead of building resilience, this culture makes students feel safer, but not necessarily stronger.
That's a pretty powerful critique. It suggests that the very system that's designed to help people learn and grow might actually be stifling the core traits that employers really value. Things like taking initiative, taking risks, and being able to learn from your mistakes. Okay, so that's the big picture stuff, but how does all this actually affect a real person who's just trying to get a job? Well, this is where the theory hits the road, on the resume itself. Check this out. This is a post from a user on Reddit's r/resumes. They have a bachelor's degree, but they're getting no bites on entry-level jobs. So they're literally asking if they should pretend to have less education just so they don't seem overqualified. It's a bizarre question, but it kind of makes sense in a market like this.
Or what about this situation? A person's been doing the work of a full-time employee for almost 4 years, but they're still officially an intern. Their boss, trying to be helpful, literally told them to just change their title on their resume. So now they're in an ethical pickle. Do you lie just to get a fair shot?
And here's another common fear. This user had a terrible experience with a previous boss and is worried about a bad reference. The question becomes, is it better to have a big gap in your work history than to risk a former employer sabotaging your future? These are the kinds of calculations people are being forced to make.
So when you're up against automated resume screening systems, intense competition, and rules that just don't make sense, You don't give up. You get creative. Job seekers are developing some pretty sophisticated strategies to basically fight back against the machine.
And this shows you just how systematic that fight has become. One Reddit user broke down this modular CV approach, which is all about using technology to beat the technology. The whole process involves creating a massive master database of every single thing you've ever done, and then using AI to build a perfectly tailored resume for every single job application, making sure you hit all the right keywords.
So where does all of this leave us? With so much frustration and mistrust and miscommunication on both sides, it's pretty clear that the pipeline between education and employment isn't just leaking, it feels fractured.
This plea, from that same letter by Brittany Vu, really gets to the human heart of the problem. After all the resume tailoring, the anxiety, the applications, the most common response is just silence. For so many job seekers, a simple rejection email would be a welcome courtesy in a system that feels deeply impersonal and disrespectful.
And this really brings us to the core conflict. For nearly 2 decades, the education system teaches you to follow rules, check boxes, and avoid mistakes. But then you step out into the modern economy, and it values the exact opposite: initiative, independent problem-solving, and the resilience to bounce back from failure. Ultimately, we have a system that seems to be failing everyone. It's failing employers who can't find the talent they need, and it's failing a generation of young people who followed all the rules only to find the game has completely changed. This leaves us with the biggest question of all: who is responsible for fixing it? The student, the school, or the employer?
That's all for this explainer. Thanks for joining us.